Hi everyone, welcome back to Ilum Sabers. I'm excited to get into today's video where I'm going to be unboxing Anakin Starkiller's The Rescuer from At Star's End. So The Rescuer, for those of you who don't know, is Luke's lightsaber from The Mandalorian. That's what it's based on. It was designed by Anakin Starkiller, that's his handle on the RPF forums, and it was sold on his website At Star's End. The run was about a year ago, or a little more than a year ago, so it's been sold out since then. I was lucky enough to find one secondhand so that I can do this unboxing, and then I will paint the hilt and install it as well. A lot of research went into the hilt. Starkiller and Halawax both did a lot of research as far as what the hilt should look like, the dimensions of the hilt should be, the paint colors that should be used on the grenade grip, as well as the thin neck portion, the wind vane, and the upper neck, as well as the color that the rails of the control box should be. So Halawax has done a whole video on painting it and the colors that he used, so I'll definitely leave a link to that in the description. And then there are a bunch of videos that Halawax and Starkiller did going over sort of the accuracy of the Rescuer, sort of where they came by, the dimensions for that. And then there's also a large thread on the RPF forum about identifying what was used for it, trying to figure out if something that already existed was used for the prop. For a long time, people thought that the Rilo reveal, which is an older custom saber from before the Disney purchase, actually, a lot of people thought that that hilt was the one that was used for the Mandalorian belt hanger, like that was the actual prop, was a custom saber that someone did in the early 2010s. The current working theory that is supported by most people who frequent the RPF forum is that the Rilo reveal, which is the one that people thought was used, it wasn't actually used, but the Rilo reveal was used as a basis for the prop that did end up on screen. So essentially the idea is they took the Rilo reveal and they scanned it and they CNC machined an aluminum copy of the Rilo reveal, and then they painted it. And the reason that that is the main working theory is because looking in depth at the prop photos, it looks like the neck on it is painted like how you would paint an aluminum neck, as opposed to being a brass neck. And the Rilo reveal had a real brass neck. So that's the main reason why we think that it's probably not an actual Rilo reveal, and why it's a CNC machined copy, an aluminum copy of the Rilo reveal. Also, earlier I referenced the belt hanger. So the Rilo reveal was what people thought the belt hanger was. And since then, of course, we've come to realize that it's probably an aluminum copy of the Rilo. But there's also a second version, which is why we differentiate. So there's the belt hanger, and then there's the stunt. And that's true with most lightsabers in most Star Wars movies. You've got, in Return of the Jedi, you've got the Luke hero, which really barely appears in the film. And then you've got the stunt saber. You've got the same thing in the prequels. You've got the belt hangers that Obi-Wan and Anakin use in Revenge of the Sith, for example. And then you've got their stunt sabers. So like for Anakin, the Spin Flex, which is a really slender and modified version that doesn't really look like Anakin's saber at a close distance. And same for Obi-Wan's. They're modified, they're smoother. For the Mandalorian prop, there is the belt hanger, which we think is based on the Rilo reveal, and there's also the stunt prop. And the stunt prop we see it in some of the behind the scenes footage for the Mandalorian gallery, and there might be some still photos of it as well. I'm not really sure about the still photos, but I know that there are some still photos taken from the Mandalorian gallery, and I remember seeing the clips myself. So for this run of the Rescuer, Starkiller wanted to do the belt hanger, so the one that was based on the Rilo reveal, as well as the stunt version. So this hilt, when I open it up, you're going to see it's going to have a bottom section, which is going to be the pommel, booster section, and clamp section. And then it's going to have two upper sections. So it's going to have two different grenade grips, because the grenade grip on the stunt and the belt hanger are different. And then it's going to have two emitter and thin neck sections, one which is based on the belt hanger, and then one which is modified to be able to take a blade. So without too much more, let's go ahead and get into the unboxing. I'm going to go ahead and open the box and cut the tape. That way I can just roll everything out nice and easy. Alright, so I've gone ahead and pulled the pieces out of the box. I've cut the tape on the bubble wrap so that everything will come apart really easily. The first piece here has already been partially assembled for me by the previous owner. You'll probably recognize it as I start to pull it out here. This is the pommel, booster, and clamp section. And when I say that it's been partially assembled, you'll notice that the control box is attached to the clamp section, and the clamp card is already in place. So that's a little bit of assembly. The box did not come originally attached. You had to attach that yourself, and then also the clamp came needing some sanding so that it was a really tight pressure fit. So I appreciate that. You'll notice that the pommel is one solid piece. It doesn't come off. The pommel cap does come off. This will unscrew, and then you'll have the classic Anakin Starkiller logo pommel to put on the bottom, and I'm going to pull that out in a moment too. You've got the hole drilled through the pommel cube here. If the control box is at the 12 o'clock position, it's at like maybe 8 o'clock or so, right here. And that, of course, is accurate, and that's part of why this is one whole assembly, so that the pommel rotation stays accurate. So I'll go ahead and put that there. And then the next piece, here we have the upper belt hanger section. So we've got the upper section for the belt hanger. You'll notice this looks a lot more similar to the Return of the Jedi here that we're familiar with than the stunt section that I'm about to pull out. So you can see that this is machined from one solid piece of aluminum. You can see all the way through there. See if I can line up the camera. Yeah, so this is hollow through there, and then up through the emitter nipple as well. That's all hollow. And the reason that you want that really is so that if you install the hilt, you're going to have some chassis sticking out here, and you want that to be able to have somewhere to go when you put on the static upper section. So this looks really similar to the Return of the Jedi upper section that we're all familiar with. You've got the wind vane and the neck here all looks really similar. The emitter cup is maybe a little thicker or a little longer this way. And the rings are all idealized. So on the Return of the Jedi prop, of course, the rings are all different. You've got thinner rings and thicker rings. These rings are all going to be idealized. So I'll go ahead and set that down, and then pull out the stunt section. This upper belt hanger section, this is what's based on the Rilo reveal. And then this upper section is based on the stunt from the Mandalorian behind the scenes special that they did, the gallery. On the bottom here, you can see the Anakin Starkiller pommel. Those just thread right onto these upper parts, the same as they would thread on down here. And you can see that the logo actually is the Armitage Shanks. It's a sort of adaptation of the Armitage Shanks logo, which is what was used on the pommel for Ben Kenobi's original prop. We've got one other thing to open, which is going to be the sort of extra pieces, right? The tri-ring, the screws for the control box, the red and green arrows. You've got an Allen wrench in there, the black buttons for the control box, that stuff. So now that everything is out, we can go ahead and go over some of this. Like I mentioned, you've got your clamp, booster, and pommel section here. Nothing, of course, is painted. You'll notice everything is still unfinished. And that is pretty standard for the At Star's End kits. You have to do a lot of the finishing yourself, some DIY work, or send them off to someone to have them do that. So these two sections here are what I kind of want to focus on, right? These two upper sections are very similar and very different. I'll go ahead and remove the vented pommel for sake of comparison so that everything is looking the same. You'll notice that the FX is actually a bit longer than the static. Let's see if I can get them to stop moving and sit still next to each other. Okay. So I've lined them up here at the bottom, and you'll see that the FX is actually quite a bit longer. So the static stops here, and the FX goes out another couple centimeters or so. And you'll notice that the rings on the static belt hanging section are thinner by quite a bit than the rings on the stunt section. The rings on the stunt section are actually much thicker, and the grenade grip section of that upper half takes up a lot more space. So you can see that the grenade grip here actually goes up about halfway, or about most of the way. So the grenade grip here goes up on the static. It goes up to the stair step at the bottom of what would be the black portion if this was painted. So those of you familiar with the Return of the Jedi prop, you know that there's sort of a stair step on the underside of the wind vane. And the stair step here is about where this upper section goes to. And then you've got, of course, the stair step here on this one, and that is about halfway up the wind vane of this one. And then, of course, the wind vane here is about halfway up the upper neck portion of this one. And then the emitter here is about halfway up this emitter. So you've got quite a bit of size difference between the two of them. But this is accurate to what you see in the Mandalorian behind the scenes gallery, complete with the blade holder. And if you have watched that, or you've seen that prop, or you've seen the EFX version of the prop, you'll notice that they had a custom Saber Shop PCB in here that was turned around backwards with the pins soldered in backwards. It looks like it's from the custom Saber Shop. So that's what most people use to install this. That's what I plan to use as well. And then I'll go ahead and unscrew this upper section to kind of show you what's going on there. All right, so I've gone ahead and taken off the upper section of the emitter, so the blade holder section and the emitter flange up here. And you'll notice that the threads on the inside of the emitter cup actually go from ceiling to floor, so all the way down to the base right here, where you would have your PCB. So the PCB would be sticking up right here out of the hole, and it would be flush with this lip here, and that is where the threads go all the way down to. The reason that's so important is because the threads on this section are exactly the same length. You can kind of see that. So this threads all the way down to that flat portion there where you've got your PCB. And so you'll notice these little holes on those threads. What you do is you put your blade into this upper section until it's sticking out, like not sticking, until it's flush right there. And once it's flush right here, you tighten down your screws, and then you go to your static section and you screw on your blade, which is already connected into your emitter flange. Use the threads to tighten the blade against your pogo pens. You've tightened the blade PCB against the pens because those threads go all the way down to where those pins are. This section, the static section, is going to be different. There's absolutely nothing that unscrews on this section. Hollow all the way through, of course, so that when you have an install, when you've installed the Hilt and you've got, chassis components sticking out here, and you go to put this on, there's somewhere for the chassis to go, of course, but there's actually no way to make this portion of the Hilt installable. And that's because this is actually just the belt hanger, whereas this portion was installed with NeoPixel technology for the Mandalorian. So you might as well go with what was actually used with the blade if you can, since they are using the same technology, and then use this for the belt hanger, since that's exactly what they did. So here is the assembled hilt. This is a really long Luke hilt. I mean, the extra little length that you see between the two grip sections really adds up to a lot. Holding this in my hands for the first time all put together, this is blowing my mind how long this thing is. And realistically, it's because this makes for a much better grip if you're using it as a prop on screen with a NeoPixel blade and everything, but it's absolutely wild how long this hilt is. I mean, I can't even really get the whole thing on camera. See if I can do that diagonally. There we go. So it's a really long hilt, and something else that you'll notice about the control box is very large. It's a very tall control box, taller. I would say most control boxes probably go up to, you know, the rail on this one, or maybe even a little above the rail, but certainly not that full height. It's a very large control box. All right, so this is what it looks like with the static section on, and this feels like a much more traditional Luke hero saber. You know, the length on this feels proper to me. Of course, the control box is still huge, but the length is a lot closer to what we see in the Luke hero and in the Boba Fett hero, in The Last Jedi. But overall, this portion of the hilt really looks good. I really like having the static section to go with the FX section. This really, you know, the Rilo look looks really good. But I really like being able to juxtapose the static and the FX, right? Because just having them sort of side by side here, just one more time, you'll notice how much longer it really is. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. It's not that much length. I mean, it goes to about maybe a third, or yeah, about a third of the way down in the control box, if you've set them end on end up here. But that makes a lot of difference. For anybody who's ever done the Custom Saber Shop MHS system, just an inch or so can make a lot of difference between a hilt seeming pretty standard length and seeming really long. So with this section on, the hilt really doesn't seem much longer than a regular hero. But with this section, the hilt really, it seems very long. Right now I've got the static pommel on here, and I'll go ahead and switch that out. So there's what that looks like. And traditionally you would probably have this upper FX portion on with this pommel, but I just want to show kind of what that looks like. I'll go ahead and do kind of a pan of the hilt. I mean, it's really great machining work. You don't see any lines or anything like that. It looks very seamless. And once it's painted, of course, it'll look even better. There aren't really any machining marks present. There are a few that are present between the pommel cubes here, just some small circles and things like that. But that's pretty standard for aluminum machining between pommel cubes. And when you go to paint the hilt, you could easily take some steel wool and just buff that out, no problem. I'm going to go ahead and do a pan of the static portion as well. You can see once again, really no machining marks visible. It's in great condition. It looks like new. And I should say it looks like new with a good quality control is what I should say, because new can look like a lot of things, especially coming straight from a machining shop. It looks fantastic. And then, of course, the static pommel as well. And there is actually, I'm noticing, there is a hole you can probably see in the static pommel. So not enough to use for venting, but just something to note. And then before I go ahead and close out the video, I'm going to go ahead and pull out some of these pieces just to get a bit of a look. So here is the button that's going to go in the control box. You can see there's a little hole in the back. I don't know if you can see that on camera or not, but that hole, set screw goes in there, and then a set screw also goes in the control box, and that's what holds it in. Set screw holds it in from both sides. You've got your Allen wrench and 4 set screws. Those are for the emitter. You've got your red and green plastic bezels, or the little triangles for the control box. and you've got the flathead screws for the control box as well. So if you notice during the overview of the hilt, the screws aren't in there yet as well. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, we've got the triangle ring. So this triangle ring, actually important to note if you have a new kit or you're looking to get a kit and you find one that's completely untouched, the triangle ring actually does not come cut. So this cut was done by the previous owner, but it was not installed in the hilt. The cut looks pretty clean to me. It looks pretty right down the middle as well, which is always good. But the ring will come welded together. This ring, interestingly enough, Starkiller and Halowax are pretty sure that this is the same actual ring that was bought and used for the prop. It seems like the Lucasfilm folks doing the shows are just using readily available off-the-shelf items, which makes sense. That's what they did back in the original trilogy as well. But yeah, this has been cut, so it doesn't normally come cut, but it's pretty easy to cut it with a Dremel, and then you just take some pliers and spread them apart. If you are going to do that, I actually have a special tool that I use. It's not really special, but I'll pull it out. This is the tool that I use. It's just a pair of pliers with electrical tape on them. They look kind of silly, and they're not good for a whole lot else, but I have several pairs, so it doesn't matter. But you just stick them in there, and then you pull, and then that will open up your ring wide enough to get it around the pommel cube. And then I normally take a small vise with a rubber sleeve on each end, and I just crank it closed into the hole. And that works pretty well. So you'll need a Dremel to cut it, but installing it's pretty much easy. It's a breeze. I know a lot of people try to avoid doing that if they can, but there's no reason to, in my opinion. I've done several of them at this point, and each one has been pretty easy and pretty uneventful. So I think that's all I've got for this hilt. I will do another overview, of course, when I paint it and get it all assembled with the proper paint, and I'll of course do another overview as well once I get it installed. But for now, this is all that I've got for this hilt. Just wanted to do a brief unboxing and showcase the beautiful machining and craftsmanship of the hilt itself. All right, that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I was really glad to be able to do the unboxing and show off this hilt. As much as we all loved the finale of The Mandalorian Season 2, it seemed only fitting that I get to show off the hilt a little bit and show some appreciation for that, as well as some appreciation for the attention to detail that Anakin Starkiller paid to the prop to get it the replica as close as it is. So if you don't have this hilt, it's definitely worthwhile to add to your Luke collection, especially if you're a fan of The Mandalorian and that appearance of Luke, as well as the Book of Boba Fett appearance as well. That being said, those two hilts, the Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian hilt, are very different, so I will do a video in the future comparing the two of them. But for now, thanks for tuning in, and may the Force be with you.